Welcome, folks. This is All Minus One Quick Shots. So today, folks, for this segment, hopefully I will not run it very long, but I wanted to talk about just a comment I got on the video I made yesterday. It was nothing that crazy, but I understand I have compassion for the ideas in which were being espoused. And I just want to address that because I understand why people think this way and they're going down this route. And I want to highlight my reply here and talk about it very briefly. So the concept was something like this. The left owns all of the institutions, and therefore any sort of violence that anyone on the right, any sort of patriot, Trump supporter, whatever they are, or a person like me who's an independent and believes in classical liberalism, where I basically leave you alone with very little taxation, very small government, and basically a night watchman, that we should not participate in violence. So the comment goes something like this. I don't like violence, but conservatives need to get rid of this romantic idea about fixing the system with the system. How many times does it have to fail you before you wake up and see the only way it can be fixed is through violence? I completely disagree. In fact, I believe that you'll be crushed if that is the case. If we are not going to use violence, we don't deserve the 2A because we are cowardly to fight tyrants. Yes, it's cowardice, not conservatives. It makes me want to join the left because they have the guts to fight. Just saying, yes, we shouldn't destroy the Capitol. It's wrong, but we should pick better targets like media and social media companies. No, because you don't have any institutional power. The left is allowed to be violent because they have institutional power. Get it through your head. This is how it works, folks. It's unfortunate, but it's how it works. So the first statement I make here. Firstly, there is no cowardice in being moral and following principles. It takes great courage to temper your spirit and flesh from acting irrationally. Peace is hard, my friend. Violence takes no courage at all. Children aren't courageous when they bite or strike their siblings. They are merely acting with malice, vengeance, irrationality, an effort to control their world. I refuse to act like children as those do on the left. I question what principles you may hold if you are so willing to jump ship to the left based on emotions. Now, I'm not saying that he really is, but he did make that argument. That's a clear indication to me that you don't have deeply seated principles other than might makes right. That is a long, hard psychological road that leads to tyranny every single time. This comes with dehumanizing your enemy and using absolute brutality to win at all costs, as the left does, folks. The physical and psychological tolls are grave and will bleed into every aspect of your life. You are the one romanticizing violence. And that is true. People like to romanticize violence. It is not what you think it is. People talk about violence as if they have any experience in it when they do not. And I will talk about that here briefly in this this reply. It says, there is no building a strong society on such a framework merely a series of constant challenges, death, destruction, and utter loss of liberty. That is the framework of romanticizing violence and might makes right. It appears to me, if you are so angry as to crave the other side, you are not in control of your emotional state and will be prone to take the easy path of violence. Again, violence is something that children enact very early on. This, my friend, is what I am trying to guard against because it is such an easy path to take. The game is about power and nothing more. Might makes right. This is exactly what the left believes, so perhaps you would be more suited with the authoritarians. I understand disenfranchisement, deplatforming, and silencing brings such desires because I'm sympathetic, I'm human, and I understand how people are getting carried away with their emotions. we are in a very elevated, escalated situation as far as the tensions in the country when it comes to politics. And there is a reason for that, because the left has been authoritarian for a very, very long time. And people have not been paying attention to it until it gets in their face. And then the big reaction is fear and of course, the call towards things like violence. You are not strong to use violence. Violence is weakness, folks. It is weakness. It is stronger to go to your death willingly. Trust me, it takes far, far greater willpower to do that. Now, I'm not talking about cowering, being afraid to fight back. I'm talking about being willfully going in and saying, here I am. It says here again, I understand disenfranchisement, deplatforming, and silencing brings such desires. These are baser instincts, and everything the right says is wrong with the left. Are you led by your feelings and passion, or do you temper yourself and act rationally? I've spent 20 years in the occupation of violence. I am literally a trained murderer, and I'm not joking about that. I am. Or usually the euphemism is a trained killer, right? Doesn't mean anything different. I'm just being overt about what it is. I've been doing martial arts for 30 years. I know blunt, edged, flexible, and improvised weapons, as well as details of human anatomy which quickly facilitate lethality. This is a reality, folks. I do. I used to teach this stuff. I know how to do things that shock people. People don't understand they don't understand how to fight in general, or the level of lethality things can reach very quickly. They're not aware. I've been in real life or death encounters. I'm not talking about schoolyard fistfights. I've been in those too, of course, when I was younger, or an encounter at a bar, but real violence with real consequences. You won't find me romanticizing anything. And I know that this guy who was responding is talking about a generality about the right, and I'm not trying to address this to him specifically. I'm talking about a grander picture. But it is something he presented, and I thought, well, man, I'm going to take the time to respond, and I'll respond to it publicly. And, he can disagree. We can agree to disagree. But I have very deep-seated principles and values, and I say the things that I say based on that. I'm not one who goes with the ebb and flow, with the winds and the tide, if you would. I'm not blown around. I sit in my convictions. I'm a principled, honest person. And then it says, so I question your experience with violence as you would so flippantly throw out such statements. As Lieutenant Colonel Dave Grossman stated in his book on killing, people speaking about violence and killing who have never participated in it are like virgins talking about sex. Part of maturing from boyhood into manhood is in our sophistication of self-control and self-acknowledgement of our strengths, weaknesses, and ignorance. We become introspective and self-aware. Now, I want to make a note about Grossman, and that I do not agree with the entire thesis of his book, but he does make good, cogent points. Grossman says it's hard for people to kill. I disagree. It's actually quite easy. Grossman also thinks that video game playing trains killers. I think that is a desk jockey stance. Now, Grossman was an infantryman, but he had never seen any sort of combat. He was also went through Ranger School, but again, was never seen in combat and basically spent his years in the military as an officer. And officers tend to get a very elitist perspective. They are not like the men on the ground. So I do have some bias toward that. And also I see that his politics are very overt and leftist in his writings. But again, his writings are an important contribution to understand. And one of the first points he makes in the beginning of his book on killing is that most people talk and romanticize and glorify violence. And those that do almost never have participated in it. Almost none of them. It is not as easy as you think to actually kill a man or to live with the killing of a man. Go read Dostoevsky. Go read some of the things in which he had written about. Go read Ordinary Men, where over time these men basically became killers as if it were brushing their teeth, because it demoralizes your soul. But outright violence through rage, a very easy thing to do. It says, second, there is no beating the federal government. So get that nonsense out of your head. And I don't mean working within the system. I kind of agree with this statement. I don't want to work within the system, but we cannot go against the system violently. This will not work. All of you need to get this out of your head. You can disagree with me about it, but this is not a reality, folks. It will crush you. I promise. We've seen this time and time again throughout the 20th century. We need to start building locally. Be involved with our neighbors. Be better brothers, sisters, sons, daughters, fathers, mothers, husbands, and wives. We need to focus on local government because the federal government is utterly corrupt and is globalist and has been for decades. The Republic died with the New Deal in the 1930s. And the reason why I say that is because that was when we decided to blatantly ignore the Constitution from then on. Are you so ignorant as to not know that NGOs run and dictate our policies? Do you understand that the nations who don't go along we destroy, e.g., Libya? Numerous others, of course. Do you not understand the Council of Foreign Relations dictates American foreign policy, as well as the Trilateral Commission and many other globalist non-government organizations? Do you not get Source Open Society provides funds to elect leftist states attorneys or other state and local office holders, funds migrants, Antifa, BLM, etc.? Do you not know the central banks control the ebb and flow of credit to multinational corporations? Are you not aware the World Economic Forum is following the UN Agenda 21, which seeks to move all folks into cities that will own no property while depopulating the southern hemisphere as to save the environment? This is actually their greater plan. They want South America and Africa essentially depopulated and the Middle East because this is going to save wildlife and the planet, and we're just going to put everyone into little compact cities, basically little zoos of control for humanity, as they already are, but even worse so. Are you watching as the We Forum talks about a transhuman system of Neuralink that will control all of your intellectual consumption, track your every move, and decide if you can participate in society or commerce, much like the current Chinese social credit score, or the famous episode of Black Mirror with Ron Howard's daughter, if I'm not mistaken. It's the actress who's in it. Dallas Howard, I believe is her name. And then I say Prince Charles, the Pope, Justin Trudeau, Joe Biden, Boris Johnson, and countless officials globally in local and federal governments have all endorsed the Great Reset. If you look up the Great Reset and you start looking at image files of the Great Reset, like a Google or DuckDuckGo image search or any other search engine, I can promise you, folks, that you will find that local governments are talking about Build Back Better in the Great Reset. Anne Arundel County, Maryland, the county government, has a whole infographic on how they will build back better. This is so much more entrenched than you understand. You are walking into this like naive children, thinking, oh, you're going to have a temper tantrum. I promise you, you will be crushed. It is not the way to get things done effectively. We have to work from the grassroots, from the personal level, from the community level, from the local small governments level, from each city. Why do you think I talk about moving into less populated areas, into the mountains, owning land? I know not everyone can do that, but perhaps you can create some sort of capitalist-style commune, if you would. People can gather together, create their own governments, as HOAs are. And instead of doing that in suburbia, do that in a far-off, distance-away place where you can build your own society, your own breakaway society. Because the reality is, is that the lefties will come for you. And I can completely understand an argument for self-defense if they are coming for you, although I'm not advocating for that either. What I am saying, though, is that going directly head to head with the people that have all of this institutional power, they control the media, they control big tech. They are part of these multinational corporations, part of these NGOs, part of these world plans to basically bring about a one world government that controls and dictates every part of your life. If you understand that this is what is actually going on and has been going on, at least since the New Deal in the United States, as we have been the military arm of the UN since after World War II, as evidenced by the Korean War, and then Vietnam, and then the Gulf War, and so forth and so on. This is the true nature of the United States. It is not the republic or the constitutional republic that you think it is. You need to give up these delusions. Here I say, I could go on forever about the players against liberty and the deep entrenchment of the government and the system, as well as their corporate backers. The whole hard truth is that if this was to be stopped, it would have been stopped decades ago. You can fight with violence, and I promise you, as a trained tactician, you will bring about more death for the innocent and greater harm to the cause of liberty than any minuscule perceived good. The institutions merely are looking for an excuse to purge all liberty-minded people from the system. And the video that this was commented on was the video I played yesterday about the leftists talking about that the people who stand in the way have to go. Do you not understand yet? I know, because I study history and what happens every time these powers rise in the 19th and 20th century. Governments have killed more than 250 million people in the 20th century alone in the pursuit of their utopias. What do you think it's going to be like when it is the combination of these global organizations? This is happening all across the West, folks. All across the West. It is not just the United States in this peril. Now, imagine you are connected by international businesses, political alliances, NGOs, global banks, and the world economy. It is naive to believe that you will somehow raise up in the modern age of tech and destroy the beast that controls the world's power. The solution is to seek peace in our own communities and to start from the bottom. It is the centralized authoritarian system that is the problem. Why would any sensible individual believe the solution is to attack the Leviathan just to be crushed? The solution is to not participate in the system, which means a lot of lifestyle choices and willingness to build communities from scratch. I'm not saying this is as a fatalist or because I'm black-pilled. I'm saying this because I'm rational and understand how the sphere of influence works in our world. I know history, psychology, and tactics. And here I end this with some words from Christ. Christ said, "Count the cost to follow him. We must be wise as serpents and innocent as doves," or lambs. It says in Luke 14, starting in verse 26, "If anyone comes to me and does not hate his father and his mother, wife and children, brother and sister, yes, even his own life, also he cannot be my disciple. And whoever does not bear his cross and come after me cannot be my disciple. For which of you, intending to build a tower, does not sit first and count the cost, whether he has enough to finish it, lest after he has laid the foundation and has not able to finish, all those who seek it begin to mock him, saying, this man began to build and was not able to finish. Or what king, going to make war against another king, does not sit down first and consider whether he is able with 10,000 to meet him who comes against him with 20,000? Or else, while the other is still a great way off, to send a delegation to ask for conditions of peace. So likewise, whoever of you does not forsake all that he has cannot be my disciple. So there is wisdom here, not just pertaining to Christ alone. Christ is saying you must be able to forsake everything. It doesn't matter what your family says. It doesn't matter what other people say. It doesn't matter what influence you have in your life. You must follow Christ at all cost. But aside from that, what he is saying here is you must count that cost. Don't even pursue him if you are not willing. And here, most importantly, which applies to this whole situation, if you are going to wage war, you must have to count the cost beforehand. You must understand the position you are getting into. Now, again, the commenter said it was wrong to go against the Capitol building. And he's talking about going against big tech or media or whatever else. Well, I do that with words in my own media, correct? Many people do. I know what the cost is. I know what the cost of being a prophet is. It is certain death. It is being dehumanized and chastised and beaten. It is at a cost very high, but I am compelled to do so because Christ has called me to do so within my faith. Here I have from Matthew 10:28. Do not be afraid of those who kill the body, but cannot kill the soul, meaning your essence. Rather, be afraid of the one who can destroy both soul and body in hell. And he is talking again about himself, God. Now, an important part of this, as we can apply to a psychological aspect of life, is it more important to go off and be told as the institutions write the histories, be counted as a insurrectionist and a rebel? Or is it more important to go and be a martyr? To have your testimony sent forth over time and be remembered in that way, as many great men and women have. Are not 2 sparrows sold for a penny? Yet not one of them will fall to the ground outside of your Father's care. And even the very hairs of your head are numbered. So do not be afraid. You are worth more than many sparrows. Whoever acknowledges me before others will also I will also acknowledge before my Father in heaven. But whoever disowns me before others, I will disown before my Father in heaven. An important point here is you disown the Lord through your actions as well. First century Christians, second, third century Christians believe that you showed your faith through your actions. See, the idea that actions speak louder than words is true because words are deceiving. They come out of your mouth and they are false all the time. You must live. You must live the life that you speak of. Otherwise, you are an actor, a hypocrite. And most people are. Do not suppose that I have come to bring peace on earth. I did not come to bring peace, but a sword. Now, this is important. This doesn't mean war, because Christ does say specifically, if my kingdom was of this earth, I would go to war. He told Peter this when he told him to bring the sword to the Garden of Gethsemane, and then tells him to put the sword away. You folks don't know your scriptures to believe otherwise. You've manipulated them, or you've been manipulated by someone who wants to seek power. They've instructed you poorly. What does a sword do, though? It divides, it cuts. And what does it cut? For I have come to turn a man against his father, a daughter against his mother, a daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law. A man's enemies will be the members of his own household. How prevalent is this now amongst so many people with this political age? Anyone who loves their father or mother more than me is not worthy of me. Anyone who loves their son or daughter more than me is not worthy of me. Whoever does not take up their cross and follow me is not worthy of me. Whoever finds their life will lose it, and whoever loses their life for my sake will find it. Anyone who welcomes you welcomes me, and anyone who welcomes me welcomes the one who sent me. That is God himself, the Father. Whoever welcomes a prophet as a prophet will receive a prophet's reward, and whoever welcomes a righteous person as a righteous person will receive a righteous person's reward. And if anyone gives even a cup of cold water to one of these little ones who is my disciple, truly I tell you, that person will certainly not lose their reward. So I finish with that by saying, Christ has demands of you. Perhaps you're not in the faith. Perhaps you do not believe anything about Scripture. Perhaps you do not find it to at least be wisdom or psychologically correct. I don't know what to tell you. But I do know this, that for 15 years I have studied and read and watched and learned as much as I could and paid attention. And now is the time that I am called to speak. And if I only influence and touch one person, then I did with the talents that the Lord has given me. That it comes from the parable of the talents, by the way, folks. Go read it, understand it, learn it. Because those who squander their talents, they do not make it into the kingdom. And war is not the way, and you cannot beat this Leviathan through war. The only way is peace. The Christians utterly changed the entire Roman Empire through peace. Gandhi, through the example of Christ in the early church, conquered the British Empire through peace. Martin Luther King conquered the horrible Democrat Party and the Jim Crow laws and segregationists through peace. I tell you these things in love. I tell you these things because I don't want to see more violence. I tell you these things because I know they will come for us all. But unless you want to accelerate it and you want the innocent to be hurt, you need to be smarter. You need to count the cost. You need to apply appropriate strategy. And if you're questioning joining the left because at least they're willing to do violence or something like that, well, I question your morals and your principles. It is absolutely more cowardice to use violence than it is to willfully be peaceful in the face of certain death. And with all that said, folks, this has been all -1 Quick Shots. God bless, and I wish you all well.